want to say that Toybiz is one of the coolest names ever for a toy company.
Agreed. Toy
Toybiz.
business.
Yeah, we're getting in some toy business. Hello, Tom.
Hey, Dana, what's happening?
Not much. You know what I am doing, though? I'm recording an episode of Two Guys Talking Toys.
Nailed it. Welcome, one and all.
Yes, loyal listeners, loyal watchers. Tom.
Welcome aboard. There is no escape.
No. So what's new, man?
Not a whole lot. I have I'm gonna jump right into things that we got, because continuing on with the what I guess is becoming a tradition of me getting things and not having time to open them until the show.
Yes, a tradition of once.
Yeah, just that that one time tradition that we like to harken back to. So I got this in the mail. I don't know what it is.
Something tried to escape, it looked like.
Yeah.
So Megatron did that one time.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You know what? It's funny. I still have not actually freed him from the box. He's still in there, desperately trying to get out.
That's why your toys are trying to escape for themselves, Tom.
It'd be just a sad episode of Toy Story.
Uh-oh. Did we get... Oh, we did it again.
We got good old Elektra Daredevil.
Right.
That is awesome. I have not read the story that this new redesign of her comes from. I've seen random images from that comic. I believe Agony, the symbiote, is in that. Yep. I scanned through a really quick synopsis. I think he frees a bunch of villains from a prison and he winds up bringing them to an island to be like, I understand, you don't have to be terrible. And Agony was essentially, I like being terrible, leave me alone. But I don't know what that has to do with Elektra dressing like, well, it's a phenomenal design. Like, I love it. It is,
and it's so phenomenal that we did it again.
Hey, good get.
You know what's the coolest thing about this figure? I'm going to tell you two things, and you and I disagree on this. One, no extra hands, no extra head. So I don't have to put anything in a baggie and label it. And two, she has her right hand is designed to hold the sai between.
That is great. Oh, I love it. I love it. I always like whenever people making Ninja Turtles either they'll add an extra hand or they'll do a little, or they'll mold Raphael's hands in such a way that he can like hold the sai in multiple ways, really multiple directions. That is really cool.
I'm going to turn it this way. Really well done, if you can see that.
Oh, I like that a lot. Now, where is she going in your collection?
Because I've had to do some boxing, so she'll probably, because I don't have a lot of the legends out yet after the pipe broke and all that. So she'll probably end up behind me over here.
Oh, that's a good addition. She can be standing next to a Psykill menacing Mr. T.
Right. I definitely take her in a fight over Mr. T.
So let me do one more, because I got one more.
Oh, that looks like fluffy.
Yeah,
you see the picture. Did you order a pillow? Did you get a My Pillow?
I would never buy a My Pillow. He'd accidentally send me his crack. I don't want to mess with him. I'm too old for that. I'm too old to start doing it. I have a strong belief that after a certain age, you're too old to start doing that nonsense.
No. I believe it's the other way around. When you're young, you already have the mental acuity and everything you need, the physicality, the energy, right? But when once I turn 80, if I live that long, which is doubtful, I want to do all the drugs.
Well, I feel like that should be saved for when you retire. Like once you've retired and you're done and you're in like the old folks home, go nuts. Like let those people do. They're you're at that age anyway. You don't have much time left. Right. Go nuts.
Well, if I'm 80, I'm going to be taking 12 different pills a day anyway. So I'll just throw in a couple of extra.
It'll be fine. And it'll give me energy and I'll be wild. And if I fall down the stairs, I'm not going to feel it.
Right. Throw both hips. I don't care. Yeah.
Just put me back in bed and give me my phone. be set. Look, old our generation, when we're ready to be sent away and locked in a room, I won't care. Just leave me my phone. That's all we're gonna need. Not even care if it's an outdated phone, because
you can take my phone, leave my
yeah.
toys.
Oh yeah, please leave the toys. Or at that age, I won't know if you just roll up put a roll wallpaper up of an image of a collection,
Mhm.
and I'll be like, oh yeah, that's all mine. I won't know. I'll be out of it. But anyway, I got a New Adventure Skeletor.
Oh,
He
that
showed up.
thing. That
He's all
thing.
he's all kinds of neat looking. This is
Is he
great.
though? Is he?
Well, you know what? It's from the pictures that I've seen, it really is I have to take him out and pose him with his back facing you, because all the pictures I saw advertising him, the back areas where all the attention to detail, when he's got all this nasty cyborg technology implanted into his spine, so it really stands out. Yeah, at face value, not the most impressive mold, but
No, because you know what?
That's fine.
When we were talking about Masters of the Universe in our episode, you said that Skeletor was impressive as compared to the original, because I went on about how horrible that original line was, and you were like, because Tony Robbins is coming after, and you were like, oh, but the Skeletor with all the cybernetic stuff, and I even forgot that Skeletor existed, and then I saw it on the shelves, and I was like, Tom, come on now.
Now, I maintain that this definitely looks better than the original, the original Skeletor mold that they've cranked out for him. This I think handles better what Matty Collector was trying to do when they were finishing up the classics line. They were just kind of, they were trying to get through as many as they could before it was over. And I remember the New Adventures Skeletor looking interesting, but it was almost like they put a hat on a hat, or like a coat over a coat. So you had the buck, but then you also had all this techno stuff as an overlay, and he just looked puffy and like he had died, and they found him in the river a few weeks later, and I'm like,
wow,
that's
that got dark fast.
Yeah, not so much. It didn't turn out well for New Adventure Skeletor.
Well, New Adventures, the original line, garbage, and the new ones, garbage, in my opinion. All right,
but this not too bad. I kind of like that. When you get a chance, you look up close, his head kind of looks like lettuce.
I did look it up close, and it does look like lettuce. And you're not making your point that it's good. You're like, no, it's all right. It looks like lettuce. Oh, you have to see it from behind. Like that's
I know, it sounds like my girlfriend in Canada. No, guys, I'm totally dating her, but she's got in another state, another country.
Or you should meet her. She has a great personality.
No, I maintain this looks better than the original.
Right. Well, it couldn't get much worse than the original.
You gotta get that secondary head from another thing, which you should not have to do. But you gotta get that secondary head.
I guarantee you, when you open that box, you're gonna rip his head off and put a cat head on there.
Don't tempt me.
Yeah,
tempt me to do that in most of my collections.
So I was feeling nostalgic recently, and you and I had discussed a couple of times, like doing an episode on why we collect, and then I'm down here in the basement surrounded by my collection, and I'm like, what? How did this happen? Like, what
am I doing?
How did this happen? It's like thousands of figures, $1 bazillion spent, and and I started thinking back, like, when did I make that transition from buying toys to then collecting toys, right? So what age did that happen? And hanging behind me, you see a lot of the Toybiz X-Men, and Toybiz also did the first Michael Keaton Batman stuff, the Batmobile and the accessories for the movie. Yeah, because the Kenner had the Super Friends mold, and then Toybiz did those horrible molds afterwards. But yeah, they goofed that up. But it was a Michael Keaton Batman in '89, and I was excited about it. So I really think it was Toybiz that kicked it off, because in '89, I was in 9th grade. So I still had all my toys that I played with, right? And I enjoyed them, but I didn't, like as you say, crash boom bang them anymore.
Mhm.
But I still had them, but they were sort of relics of days gone by, right? They
Yeah.
were the toys that I still had. And I still
Mhm.
have today, the Thundercats, the He-Man, a lot of the Super Friends from 84. But the difference between 84 when I was 11 and 89 when I was in ninth grade, that was a whole different ball game, right?
Yeah.
So I really do believe that it was Toybiz that sort of made me make that transition, because I'm a huge Batman fan. And I was really excited about that Tim Burton movie when it came out in 89. In fact, I still have the t-shirt that I bought in 89 when the movie came out. And I could still wear it.
Mhm.
Although I think it's gonna fall apart if I do. But those figures and that Batmobile, which I fell in love with, that version of the Batmobile, I bought them
Mhm.
when I was in ninth grade. Like I was beginning to think about driving and stuff. And we've talked about, like, when I started driving when I was 16, I was like, we're going to Playworld,
Yeah.
But I think it was the 89 movie and the Toy Biz figures from that movie. The Joker was horrible. The Batman looked like he had way too many carbs the night before, but the Batmobile was cool and the Batwing. But then shortly after, and that was an early outing for Toy Biz. So, I'm not a historian of this stuff. I just try
Mhm.
to remember. But like Toy Biz, I want to say came into real fruition in like 88.
That sounds
So
sounds about right.
that that Batman movie in 89 was their first big outing. And
Mhm.
that was huge. And then, we move forward into the 90s, and there's a whole, drama with Toy Biz where they, and then when did the X-Men animated series come out? 92?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah,
So that,
they got pretty entangled with Marvel, and then I
yeah,
believe it.
Marvel literally bought them. Like they fell under the ownership as a subsidiary of
No,
Marvel Entertainment, didn't they, Toy Biz?
no, Toy Biz wound up helping bail Marvel out of bankruptcy, if I'm remembering correctly. I think that I don't remember if they merged with them or if
Yeah,
they
I
had some
think
kind of
I think
financial
they
tie to them.
yeah, and I think they fell under after a while, like later on
Mhm. Yeah,
in the
yeah,
2000s.
yeah. Once Marvel recovered, I think
When
the
the
roles kind of
Legends,
switched.
those
Yeah.
first Legends came out, I think the roles reversed and they
Mhm.
became a subsidiary of Marvel Entertainment, and
Mhm.
then that tanked.
Mhm.
And around 2006 or 7, I don't think we saw any more from Toy Biz, did we? After that,
No, I think they folded not too long after after Hasbro got a hold of the license, or they folded it and Hasbro picked it up.
right, right. But the 90s, man, between Playmates and Toy Biz,
Yeah,
that's what
that's
you had, because Kenner was cranking out the new Star Wars stuff, which
yeah.
was awful, right? And Hasbro had what before they took on Marvel?
Hasbro was they were putting out they were trying it with a lot of different franchises. I know they were
Yeah,
it was a mixture of like humanoids, your visionaries, you had your
right. Yeah, yeah,
uh
cartoony stuff.
yeah,
But the Fox,
G.I. Joe, if I remember correctly.
yeah,
Um
yeah. Oh yeah, they did all the GI Joe Extreme, and that was
yeah.
garbage. But the 90s, the toys in the 90s were, it was just a weird boom time, because it was still
That
toys, but it was like the
Hasbro's thing was
collector gold.
Transformers.
Yes, 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 yes.
That was kind of like what carried them through until they hit Marvel as well.
Right. Well, Marvel just saved everybody. But in 92, when the X-Men cartoon came out, and then these figures behind me
Mhm.
came out, I was so excited. Now, I was a high school senior in 92. And when that cartoon came out, and I would still, I had practice and rehearsals and everything else, and I'd miss the Fox, afternoon, the cartoon festival of Marvel stuff.
Yeah.
But the X-Men, those first outings, those figures were phenomenal. And they were being bought by collectors and kids because they were the perfect toy for that. It was like the perfect timing for Toy Biz to do that.
Yeah,
But
it
Toy
was
Biz in the 90s had they had Xena, right?
yeah.
Uh Hercules. They did, obviously they had all the Marvel stuff, but they did Resident Evil. They got that license.
Yeah.
Didn't they have WCW and TNA?
I want to say that they did. I want to say they had WCW.
Yeah,
I don't remember if they had TNA or not. But it's kind of cool you bring that up, because with shows like Hercules and Xena, like those were, I wouldn't consider those to be quote unquote kids shows. They were skewed for, like, I also wouldn't call them grown up shows, but kind of like that middle ground.
Yeah.
But that's also the kind of the collector age that we fell under, and it turned into this like you said, this transitional period where you were like, well, I don't want to like play with these anymore. But I also, like, it never crossed my mind. It when I was growing up, it never ever crossed my mind to throw any of my toys away.
Nope, never.
I would set them aside, and I know I didn't want to, because I went from being like, oh, this will be cool to play with, to this is actually just kind of cool to look at. And that went for, like, I started noticing a lot of the subtle differences between different companies that made the things that I used to play with. As far back as like the Imperial dinosaurs, like those were sculpted a certain way and they looked a certain way. But then I also had dinosaurs created from other companies. Like I had this one that people may remember. It was he had the 1970s, 80s stance of the T-Rex, but it had the spikes of a Stegosaurus, and then the tail also had the Stegosaurus spike. So it was this weird hybrid. And at the time, I didn't think about it because, as a kid, it just looked cool. And then as you got older, I'm appreciating more the detailing that went into it. Like it's a cool idea. The execution is neat. And then as you got older, when it applied to comic stuff, more grown-up written cartoons, and seeing this on the shelf, you're like, oh, well, this is also, now I want that, not to bring it home and smash it around. Now I want to take it home and put it on a shelf, maybe, or set it up somewhere, or just have it. Like a lot of the stuff that came out in the 90s, like I got it for that explicit reason.
Right, because that was that transitional time, and so the X-Men came out, these figures came out, and then they gave characters, and that's when I was really starting to get more into the comics as well. And they gave characters right away, like they went deep into their archives for some of those characters quickly.
Their catalog was expansive,
and they were cranking them out and doing well. And then so that took off, and then they really hit their stride, I think, with the Spider-Man animated series, because those figures had a little more detail, a little more character. They had that definite animated, like Colossus right here. You know, he's got the weight, right? But he doesn't look like Colossus looked in the cartoon. He's got the same outfit and all, but he doesn't have that same look. But the Spider-Man figures came out, and man, that Scorpion was great. That Peter Parker that came with the camera, and that was the first time that I remember getting Peter Parker.
Yeah,
you never had Peter Parker, but that was cool. Like, and he had, and he looked just like the cartoon.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Peter Parker. It was such a big deal. I remember around that time getting into comics and getting into collecting the cards and whatever, and it was such a big deal to find not the Spider-Man card, because there were a ton of those, but finding the Peter Parker card. And here you had Toybiz making Peter Parker, who you had just seen on the screen, which I also think is a huge part of
Mary
the drive.
Jane. That was the first time we had Mary Jane.
Yeah. And we all know that the 80s was the world of 30-minute commercials for toys.
Right.
But as you got older, it was still kind of the same thing, but now the story was,
those stories were phenomenal. Those Venom episodes in that series, the 90s Fox series, dynamite.
What little changes they made from the comic versus the show were negligible, because you had so much fun watching how it played out on the show. And then seeing characters on that show, and then being able to go to the store. And this goes back to, collecting when you were little, or when you would you'd see whatever commercial on television and then beg your parents to take you to Play World to get whatever. You would see, I remember seeing an episode where they had the Spider Slayers, and Smythe had them combine, and within maybe a month of that airing, you could go to the store and buy that big box set of
Yeah.
all the Spider Slayers, and
Which
that
was
super
amazing.
cool.
And I never had it, and I want
I
it
never got it.
now because I have Smythe. And the Smythe figure is a little weird, to be honest. It wasn't like the rest of them. They had different
Mhm.
hips
Yeah.
connection. Like the Smythe figure was weird. He was crunched down. He looked like the
Are-
character from Wild Wild West that
Are you-
Kevin Branagh played.
Are you going to be getting because Hasbro's been cranking out the animated line
Yeah.
that come in the VHS kind of sets?
Yeah.
They're making one for Smythe. Are you getting him?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I had to get the animated. You know me. I have a weakness for anything that looks animated.
Mhm.
And I have such a love for all of those lines. Those X-Men storylines, and even the animation matured when you got
Mhm.
to the Spider-Man line,
Yeah.
the Spider-Man series. But man, there are episodes of that X-Men series that could make you misty.
Oh yeah.
And the Spider-Man series didn't fail either. Phenomenal writing. And then after that, it kind of trailed off. We got the Incredible Hulk,
Mhm.
which was kind of
Not the best.
The Fantastic Four was but the Silver Surfer series was fantastic.
I actually did enjoy the Silver Surfer series.
Yeah.
I always forget that it existed until I'll
And
be
it
going
still
through
had that
random
like
files and find it.
grippy Jack Kirby look about it too.
Yeah. I'm super excited for the upcoming X-Men 97 series that we're supposed to be getting. And I like that Hasbro has started putting out an X-Men 97 toy line, which
Yeah, I have. They're
I
right over there. The 3-inch ones. Yeah, they're right
no,
over there.
they're also doing a 6-inch line
Oh yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
go
I
with
saw
them.
those too. Yeah,
I
those are
will
pre-ordered.
I will not be picking them up because I have hit the saturation point with X-Men and they look great, but I
Yeah.
will probably not be getting them. But it is really cool that they're putting them out there because I'm hoping that when the actual show airs that they will either do a re-release or kind of align them, because we've all seen the success that having the media available really helps the sales. Like I really feel that that's why the Rancor Kickstarter for Hasbro failed. Even though
Right. Yeah, we went through that.
who doesn't want a Rancor? But if they had just waited until it made its appearance in the show that it shows up in, I think it would have been fine. So I'm kind of hoping that they push out the 97 X-Men and hopefully make it line up with the show when it comes out.
Yeah, and going back to those toy lines, for those of us who were reading comics for 15 years before those shows came out, right? We finally got X-Force, X-Factor, Deadpool. Like that series gave us everyone. And I remember when like Ahab came out, I was like, I don't know who he is, but he's cool. I'm going to buy him and I'm going to find out who he is. I love that. And, the Spider-Man series gave us that phenomenal Madam Web figure.
Oh yeah.
There was our first Kingpin,
who we still haven't gotten in the Marvel, in the current Marvel Legends wave, which brings up a question. And
the Beyonder, like we got to see the Beyonder on screen, and did the whole Secret Wars story play out in front of you?
Now, do you think that what is considered now limited articulation on those is the reason they were able to crank out so many so quickly? Like we saw a lot of reuse, but we also see a lot of reuse in the current lines. So do you think? But like you said, we were seeing characters that you just never seen before. Like I remember seeing Killshot on the shelf, and I'm like, I don't know who this is, but he looks neat.
Right?
It wasn't familiar with Random, but he looked neat.
And the sizes varied. Like Chad and Strong Guy and Husk and Juggernaut. Like they were. I mean, not the original. The first Juggernaut had roller skates and was kind of weird, but after that. Like they did.
So what do you think? Do you think it's a production thing, or like
I do? Yeah, I think
an engineering thing. Like it takes a little bit more to engineer now as opposed to
absolutely. And you know what? And that's because they were designed to be toys. Like they had to be sturdy, as opposed to being well articulated. You know what I mean? They were still toys.
It really makes me wonder because we hear the there's inflation, there's this costs more, paint apps cost whatever. But I always kind of wonder if we had the engineering knowledge that we have now back then. Say things weren't as expensive, but we know how to make a thigh swivel. We know how, and we've seen hints of it. Like we've seen they were messing around with different types of articulation depending on what they needed to do. I wonder if they would have still been able to crank out maybe not quite as many, but still a lot more than what we're seeing now.
Well, when you think about Toybiz, like they moved from that series to the thing and then the Hulk, but then they pivoted fast.
Yeah.
Like, so X-Men Evolution was still Toybiz.
Yeah.
And those figures were phenomenal.
What a great show.
It was a great show. And the toys looked just like the characters in the cartoon. Just sculpted so well and captured perfectly that animated look.
The Colossus toy from that line is so good.
That Juggernaut is fantastic.
Character is great.
Yeah, and you had the Nightcrawler in his human form, and just so well done. The Wolverine, but looked just like the cartoon. The same way Justice League Unlimited captured that perfect look of the animated. That's what they did with Evolution. Only better sculpts.
Yeah,
they actually stood up. And they look just like, but then we've talked about you being an articulation snob that you are, and speaking about articulation now and that. So Toybiz was knocking them out of the park, knocking everything out of the park in regard to the Marvel stuff. And then we get to the point where Marvel Entertainment, Toybiz, whatever you want to call them, says, all right, we knocked it out of the park with the toys. Now, those people who were buying the original X-Men figures behind me and were buying the X-Men Evolution and the Spider-Man toys and all of this are now still buying toys. We are going to make collector action figures.
Yep.
And then they birthed Marvel Legends.
Yes.
That first series had Toad, which only had the 5 points of articulation.
Yeah. Which is
and he was the only one.
Amazing to think about.
He was the only one that did, right? And then they did the Iron Man with the removable mask, so you could see Tony Stark's face, and it was big and clunky and not great, right? And then there was Captain America. There was, so they did that, and it went out like everyone was like, "Oh, cool," because it was at that time where we've discussed, like, Spawn came out 6-inch scale, collectible figure. Yeah. So Marvel Legends saw, 6-inch scale, collectible.
They saw people were buying it. They saw that people were making a big deal about it. Right. Everyone was praising McFarlane for, these are the figures we want. And this was before he started using explosive plastic. So
right. And then they moved from that Toad, which inexplicably only had 5 points for articulation, but he had a cool Toad that he was palming like a basketball for some reason, like he was going to eat it. And then I guess that would have been cannibalism, right?
Well, he was trying to figure out what happens when that Toad gets hit by lightning.
Gosh, I love that they played that. They paid that off in the Superhero Squad.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they were down. They were down in the sewers, right? And Thor and Captain America and Wolverine were down there or something. And Thor hit Toad with some lightning, and Wolverine, I think, goes, "Oh, so that's what happens when a Toad gets hit by lightning." It's genius. That show is genius. Anyone who hasn't seen it, go watch Superhero Squad. You're going to feel like a goofball when you first turn it on, and then 5 minutes later, you're going to be laughing your butt off.
Yep. You'll enjoy the theme. You'll enjoy the show.
Yeah. And then so Toybiz moved forward with the Legends, and then they went cuckoo bananas with the articulation, and it was horrible. The women's legs were spindly and bending, and it was just nonsense.
Well, how many waves did it take them to get to that point? Because I feel like that wasn't happening originally. Because
no, it wasn't happening originally. Although my original Captain America Marvel Legends literally has 2 left feet.
Because I remember them trying to work out, add additional articulation to shoulders. We were getting into not quite ball socket, but like the double sectioned joint to make sure that the thighs connected and could swivel.
Yeah.
They hadn't quite they hadn't quite mastered the ab crunch yet. It was there, but like the tension issues were still a thing. I remember them still working out the sculpts, because even though the sculpting was much better, like the sculpting on Toad is just great, but working out sculpting to work with the articulation was kind of it was a journey, because we all remember that first sculpt of the Thing that had the trench coat, but no fists, open palms.
It was it had the bendy, it had the wires, and it was like Gumby.
Yeah, it was real rough for the Thing.
He could wave or like
just open hand slap you, challenge you to a duel.
Yeah, I can see that they were trying stuff. Like they were like, wouldn't it be cool if instead of, but then they started to joint the hands.
Yes.
Which was too much. Too much. It was like a thumb joint and then a hand joint, and sometimes too much.
Yeah,
it was when whatever line Daredevil came out in, not the movie Daredevil, the cartoon. He was anorectic. He had this weird like Popeye chin.
Yeah.
And he was so thin and you could not get him to stand up. And I think that was the same. Elektra came out in that line too, and she had the weird hip joints, and it was horrible. And they kept going with that. It was just awful.
They were still I think in that mindset of like action features. Like we need to give them, because they were still doing the gimmicks. We had the we had like the Rider series, and we had the like the let's add additional armor series. They were still kind of in that mindset. They were getting away from there needs to be a play feature.
And everybody came with a thing, like a big thing, like Dr. Doom came with a throne.
Yeah.
You know, Reed Richards came with part of the Fantastic car that you could hang on the wall, and he'd sit in there. Like I have a picture of my toy room when I lived in Florida, and it was when the first Marvel Legends were coming out, and I had all of the things hanging on the wall, and they would get like Reed Richards' thing had a slot for you to put like a push pin in there and put it on the wall, which was cool. But you know, it was a lot.
And of course, we have to give Toybiz, and I always give Toybiz all the credit in the world for the introduction of the Build-A-Figure.
Yes.
Because holy cow. What a great concept.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's
brilliant marketing strategy.
Brilliant.
And not only were like the Build-A-Figures cool.
For new viewers, Tom and I did an entire episode about Build-A-Figures, so go check it out.
Yes, go into the catalog and have a look. Them introducing that's part of what got me into Marvel Legends, because I remember that first wave appearing and seeing it on the shelf, but I had gotten away from that. Like I had collected a lot of the Toybiz figures. Like I still want them to do an updated version of what was his name? Warstar? The big green robot character. He's from that wave where everyone had a little buddy. So it was him, and then I think there was an X-Men character.
Yeah, the Husk had the thing that went back, and Jod had the white guy on his shoulder,
which was really cool. So we've gotten Jod. Now Marvel Legends needs to get on those other figures. But I remember like those were kind of some of the last Toybiz figures that I picked up, and then I kind of backed off because I had gotten into other things like Beast Wars and some of the other the Generation 2 Transformers.
Right.
And so Marvel Legends pulled me back in.
So you'll give them credit for the Build-A-Figure, and I'll agree with that. And I'm gonna curse them. I'm going to admonish them for giving us the toe joint.
Oh man.
Like I'm glad. Look now, Marvel Legends, no toe joint. Awesome. You cannot get those figures. Every Spider-Man figure has this stupid toe joint, and they don't stand up. That Daredevil, like Captain America with the 2 left feet, toe joint. We don't need toe joints.
They became a victim of just too much articulation.
Right, and the hands too much.
And I understand what they were trying to go for, because that was always the big thing. Like once I feel like once the collector community began interacting with itself, and then companies could see that interaction through something like Toy Fair, or just like the internet was still kind of in its infancy, but you still had collectors talking to one another.
Toy Preview, Toy Fair, we had those magazines.
So people could see, or people who were in the industry could actually see what people were saying, what they were griping about, and a lot of the big gripes were, this figure can't move, I can't do whatever, wouldn't it be cool if? So they probably took that to heart and was like, okay, let's apply this. But they applied it to everybody, which was not
Yeah.
a good idea. Like Cyclops should not have the same articulation as Spider-Man.
Right. And I'm surprised he didn't have like flaring nostril joints. Like they were just,
they tried it out. You know, they had a few different nose options
Like-
or like a few different ear options
like
for
Bewitched.
This will be, oh, won't they? They'll love it. Now Rogue can look like she smells something funny. People are gonna love it.
You
It's
know,
just didn't
Wolverine
test
didn't
well.
shower and he smelled like stale beer and cigars. So
You're like, how do you not dull your own mutant power? You've got to be able to smell that, Wolverine. It's fine. I've gone nose blind doing it, but I
maybe
know
that's why
Daredevil's
he
around
was.
the corner.
Maybe that's why he was doing it to stop smelling everybody else.
It's his version of shrinking. I'm trying to forget. Trying to
It's
forget
like
what I smell like.
it's like Daredevil's deprivation chamber.
But yeah, the over articulation was a little weird. I'm glad that they seem to have kind of started to figure it out as the line went a little bit further. We were still seeing it, but they had messed around with some of like the tension. They had scaled it back on some of the larger figures.
Yeah.
The Build-A-Figures, thankfully, did not suffer from that. And they were careful about making them able to support their own weight for the most part until cost saving efficiency, quote unquote efficiency, hit them too on the worst figure to have applied that to, Onslaught. And I remember seeing the preview of that and being so excited, and then getting my first Build-A-Figure piece, and I was like, this is just a tiny little chicken wing. Like, this isn't.
I don't know what they were thinking about that Onslaught, because the first Onslaught had the nobility of Magneto.
Yeah.
Right. Like when you see Magneto, the way he's drawn, and even the Toybiz Age of Apocalypse Magneto was one of their best figures.
Yeah.
Just captured that overconfident nobility that Magneto carries himself with. It was just phenomenal.
I remember letting a lot of the size issues go in like earlier Toybiz, because they also covered the Onslaught saga, and they still had that
and
really
they did,
cool version.
but that was a great. Like if you just gave me that, but 8 inches tall as a Build-A-Figure, sold.
That'd be great. Yeah, but I was so excited because the Apocalypse they did was perfect, like a perfect figure. And I was really looking.
Galactus and the Sentinel.
They were so good. I regret.
Don't even get me started on Fing Fang Foom. I love that thing.
I see. That's when I regret having never found all the parts too. I'm really sad that they canceled. There was a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive that unfortunately was canceled, but it was Fing Fang Foom. But he had like a lava color scheme to him. He was kind of like orange and reddish, and that would have been really amazing. I don't know if the molds are destroyed or they just don't want to do it, but that disappeared. It's not around anymore.
Nope. And speaking of disappearing and not being around anymore, it's time to end our show.
Yep. So we are at the buzzer. If you would like to weigh in on this, I'm probably gonna run out of time. Let me try it anyway. Get hold of us on Twitter. We are 2 Guys Talking Toys. That is the number 2, no G after the talking. You can get a hold of us on Gmail as well. That is 2 Guys Talking Toys, no G after the talking, the number 2. Take care, everybody.